you see the way Crowder is, I don't want to say killing it. I want to say owning it. Crowder, Rumble is, and he made a very good point. I was listening to Crowder as we were driving back from the Florida Keys today. It's a very interesting distinction between social media and media. People go to YouTube not to hang around in social milieus and social media. They go there because they want to absorb, consume content. Rumble is turning into a network. It's turning into an unaffiliated network of content creators that are drawing in people away from YouTube towards Rumble. En masse, by the hundreds of thousands, literally. People, I remain optimistic. There's a lot of sheep as the term grows. There's a lot of people who reflexively just say, hey, what's recommended, and I'll know what the news is, and they hang around. They're getting exposed to Rumble. Rumble's in the news. Rumble is making the news. Rumble has I'm going to say it, an unaffiliated network of free-thinking content creators who are more honest, who are more genuine, who are more reliable than everything you find on network cable news. Everything. Maybe with the exception of Tucker Carlson, because I do like Tucker Carlson. Everything. And it is becoming a network to which people are flocking in the same way they used to flock to network television. And it's an amazing thing to watch. And we're going to go contribute to that. So head over to Rumble. There's 1818. It's a lucky number. 1818 on YouTube now. Let's see. 0 on YouTube and an additional 1,818 people going over to Rumble. And then we're going to have the after party on Locals, vivabarneslaw.locals.com. I'm ending on YouTube, and then we're going to talk a bunch of stuff. How do I want to end, remove, and remove? Okay, 3, 2, 1. See you on Rumble, people. I hope I wasn't too angry with this first half hour, but I am. Sorry. Sorry, eh? Okay, we are now, looks like we're exclusive on Rumble and Locals, and now I can actually show you how this works. Let's go address a couple of the Rumble rants. I haven't read them, so if they're naughty, apologies in advance. Chet Chisholm, I know it's not going to be naughty. Chet, I had on the channel a little while ago. The first 3 days of the National Citizens Inquiry went fantastically well. Testimonies are now on the Rumble channel and on the website. Dan Hartman will be testifying in Toronto next week. Chet, thank you very much. Chet was an EMT. We check out the interview that we had on my channel here. It was amazing. And Chet, I don't know if I'm allowed. Anyways, I might try and testify at the National Citizens Inquiry as well. Whether or not it's in person or digitally, we'll see. $5 Rumble rant from GL Sasic or Glasic. $5 for Paris Fund. I don't know what. I'm not going to Paris anytime soon. Okay, people. What do we want to do? Do we want to do the Trump, or do we want to... there's really not much to talk about Trump. There's a battle between DeSantis and Trump right now that's going on, and people are saying, why are they fighting among each other? People are not taking the piss out of me or getting mad at me or Barnes. I posted a highlight of Barnes saying how DeSantis, in his response to the rumorings of Trump going to be indicted and cuffed for alleged hush fund payment, indictable offense, a hush payment to porn star Stormy Daniels is going to lead to Trump's indictment. And some people recognize that Barnes is making a phenomenal point, even if they don't like it, because a lot of people like both Trump and DeSantis, me being one of them. DeSantis is doing amazing work as a governor. I would rather, from a very selfish, self-centered perspective, I would rather see DeSantis stay as governor of Florida than go up and, potentially get chewed up and spit out by the federal machine in DC. I happen to like both of them. And so when I listen to or retweet or clip critique of DeSantis, some people might view that as taking pot shots at DeSantis. Others who see constructive critique for what it's worth, would say, this is constructive criticism. Maybe DeSantis should think, about strategy. In the same way, when I take shots or criticize Pierre Poilievre, it's not just gratuitous insults. It's, hey, I may not support you, But you might still stand to gain by listening to the critique, because not all critique is destructive critique. Some of it is legit constructive critique. So for those of you who have been living under a rock for the last little while, Trump is rumored to be on the cusp of getting indicted by a very proactive, Soros-funded DA named Alvin Bragg out of New York. I will say that the individual, Alvin Bragg, is bona fide. It's been reported by Fox, by the New York Post, and it has not been contradicted even by left-leaning media sites like heavy.com, which don't want to confirm it. So all that they do in fact-checking the statement is cite other sources without saying that the sources are wrong. By all accounts, it looks like it's confirmed factual information that the DA, Alvin Bragg, was funded by a political action committee. I think it was called Color for Change. That was funded by George Soros to the tune of $1 million. So Soros doesn't directly say, here, Alvin Bragg, here's $1 million. He goes and gives it to a political action committee that then goes and uses it to help Alvin Bragg get elected. Alvin Bragg, rumoring to be on the cusp of indicting Trump by testing out, according to Jonathan Turley, a novel legal theory which would involve Trump allegedly falsifying business records to conceal a hush payment to porn star Stormy Daniels, porn actress. I don't know what it takes to be a star in the porno world anymore, but she's definitely a porn actress. All right. Very interesting discussion that Robert Barnes and I had Monday night during our Sunday night stream on Monday is why the talk of indictment makes absolutely no sense. Michael Cohen, Trump's former lawyer, who's now in jail or serving time, has served time, whatever, he might have gotten out. He pled guilty to campaign finance violations, which consisted of him making a contribution in kind to Trump's campaign in an amount that exceeded the limits by making the hush payment to Stormy Daniels. So the argument was that Michael Cohen exceeded campaign donations by making this hush payment of $130,000 to Stormy Daniels, but it was actually a contribution in kind to the Trump campaign. Therefore, Michael Cohen broke the law and pleaded guilty and went to jail. Okay. That indictment, that charge, that plea is predicated on the idea that Michael Cohen made the payment himself to Stormy Daniels, that it was a contribution in kind that exceeded contribution limits, which should mean logically, in theory, Trump can never be indicted for the same hush money payment, because if it were a contribution to his own campaign, it wouldn't be illegal. Okay. So by virtue of the fact that Michael Cohen pleaded guilty to violating campaign finance laws, Trump could not be indicted for this. Apparently, the novel theory that they're testing, setting aside statute of limitations, which by all accounts seem to have expired, falsifying business records to disguise this payment as not being what it was. Okay. Jonathan Turley, by my standards, by my knowledge, seems to be a very, very fine legal mind. I know people on the left no longer like that ever since he came to Trump's defense in the impeachment process. Says it's a very weak legal theory and probably best not testing novel legal theories when indicting a former president of the United States and front runner to the next presidential election for the Republican Party. Probably best not to do if you want to avoid being called a banana republic district attorney. If you want to avoid being called an absolutely corrupt district attorney, financed by progressive George Soros to politically persecute the front runner for the Republican Party for the 2024 election and former presidential former president. Probably not the best thing to do if you want to say America is not like Russia. We are better. We go after our political foes with novel theories to try to demonize them to make sure they can't run for office again. Okay. So there was Trump put out that he expects to be arrested, indicted, cuffed, all the rest of it. It hasn't happened yet. It hasn't happened yet because maybe there's been such massive outcry that even a grand jury, which, as they say, although I think they only say it of the grand juries in Chicago, but maybe they say it of grand juries in general, could indict a ham sandwich. They haven't done it yet. And apparently the grand jury meeting or whatever, that was convened for today has been postponed because apparently there's, according to Fox News, take it for what it's worth, there's massive dissent, or major dissension, I think is the quote, yes, in the DA's office. Okay. Everyone knows that from Leo Gets. Whatever you want, Leo gets. That's Lethal Weapon 2, if I'm not mistaken. Doesn't matter. So apparently Trump hasn't been indicted yet. He hasn't been cuffed yet. As far as I know, let me just make sure that it hasn't happened. Hasn't happened, yes. Okay, stuck on standby. So let's just go here. Make sure that we have the most up-to-date article. Okay. What the hell is going on with... Okay, here we go. Trump hush money grand jury proceedings canceled for Wednesday, sources say. I am always skeptical of unnamed sources. One thing's for certain, it's 5:45. I've been truthful and consistent since day prior. Sorry. Well, it's 5:45. As far as I know, they haven't had the grand jury convening, so this looks like it's checked out. Grand jury proceedings canceled amid major dissension in DA's office, sources tell Fox News. Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg's office has canceled, quote, the grand jury meeting that was scheduled to take place Wednesday as part of the investigation into former President Donald Trump amid speculation of a possible indictment. Two sources familiar. I take these sources with as much of a grain of salt, as if they were anonymous sources for CNN. Grand jury was slated to meet Wednesday and was expected to hear from at least one additional witness, but Fox News learned that Bragg's office canceled the proceedings. Okay. Grand jury was notified Wednesday morning and was placed on standby. Standby. Now, I had an envision of that guy in Ukraine. We can't confirm or comment on grand jury matters, Bragg's office told Fox News. Two sources familiar told Fox News Digital on Wednesday that the grand jury was canceled amid major dissension within the district attorney's office. Could it possibly be that social media or independent content creators have actually caused such a shitstorm that even a highly politicized, highly corrupt district attorney's office is now saying, this might be a little bit too much for us? Maybe. Could it be the most amazing thing ever if Bragg is ultimately humiliated? I don't know how he can get forced out of office, but if ultimately the backlash from let me rephrase, the response to the amazing backlash that this story has garnered actually deters the DA from following through with this absolutely idiotic political persecution, it would be amazing. And it would be, it would be a white pill. I guess it would be something of a white pill. But by the way, I don't get these white pills anymore. It's going to happen anyhow. Do I want to make the unlikely bet that it's not going to happen? I don't know. I can't do that. Despite rumors of a potential imminent indictment, sources familiar, yada, 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 he told Fox News that Trump had not been formally notified about whether Bragg actually plans to bring charges against him. Sources told Fox News, though, that there remains a real chance that Bragg does not choose to indict the former president. By the way, here, I'm thinking out loud. You know what's going to happen now? Bragg is not going to indict Trump. And then they're going to accuse him of having put out misinformation, disinformation. They were never going to indict him. Trump was lying, riling up his base, trying to incite people to violence. They were never going to indict him. I don't think they can say that now anyhow, if there have in fact been grand jury meetings or if a grand jury has been convened. You don't convene a grand jury if your intent is not to indict or not to, see if they want to indict. Bragg, when he took over as district attorney general in 2022, stopped pursuing charges against Trump and suspended the investigation indefinitely, according to one of the top prosecutors who resigned from the office in protest. Prosecutors Mark Pomerantz and Carrie Dunn, who had been leading the investigation under DA Cyrus Vance, submitted their resignations after Bragg began raising doubts about pursuing a case against Trump. The possible charges stem from the $130,000 hush money payment that then Trump lawyer Michael Cohen made to adult film star. Oh, they don't call them porn stars. My apologies. Adult film stars. Stormy Daniels, whose legal name is Stephanie Clifford, in the weeks leading up to the 2016 presidential election, yada, yada. Daniels is not one of the last witnesses that Bragg planned to call. Her lawyer tells Fox News that, as we stand, Daniels has been asked to speak before the grand jury. Yada, yada, yada. Okay. Cohen has said that Trump directed the payments. Cohen paid Daniels $130,000 through his own company and was later reimbursed by Trump's company, which logged the payments as legal expenses. Karen McDougal, a former Playboy model who allegedly had a relationship with Trump, received a $150,000 payment through the publisher of the supermarket tabloid National Enquirer. Okay, do we care about the rest of this? The Manhattan DA's investigation into Trump began in 2019 by then District Attorney Cyrus Vance. The probe was focused on possible bank, insurance, and tax fraud. Can you believe, for all the crime that's going on in New York right now, this is what they're dedicating their resources to? The case initially involved financial dealings of Trump Manhattan's properties, yada, yada. Doesn't matter. Okay, whatever. So thus far, everybody, good news, maybe something of a white pill. Trump has not yet been indicted and cuffed. Maybe they've gotten wiser. Maybe they're just biding their time. Maybe they're going to spin it as Trump having made it all up and it was never going to happen in the first place. But we're on standby, so we'll see what happens. Oh, what a time to be alive in a very, very cynical sense. Wait until you hear. We're going to do a fun one involving Tim Pool right now, right after I read these. Okay, here we go. On to M. So we're going to do some Rumble rants. We're going to do a fun short story, and I'm going to go through the legal proceedings, much like I used to do out of the car. I was going to do a car vlog for this one, but no, involving Tim Pool, Timcast, being sued for copyright violation by what I might think is copyright trolls seizing on an error in order to try to make an easy payday. On to M. $2 Rumble rant says, Viva, I agree with Robert about DeSantis' comments regarding Trump and the weaponized Justice Department. No, absolutely. Barnes is right. That's it. Barnes is right. He might have been a little over the top. It might have been a little hyperbolic when he said his political career is over. His political career is not over. His presidential run might not be over either, but it definitely took a hit. And Barnes is right. He's right, and I'm complimenting myself here a little bit as well. Because DeSantis, first of all, you know what DeSantis could have done to court Trump supporters? Defended Trump, vigorously defended Trump. If he wanted to cynically siphon off some of Trump's supporters, vigorously defend Trump. I say from a self-preservation perspective, DeSantis made a mistake because by defending Trump, he's not defending Trump, he's defending himself. If he thinks this is going to be weaponized persecution only for porn star payments, well, wait until they find a way to prosecute DeSantis for, I don't know, they'll find criminal finance, human trafficking laws about what he, the ploy that he did by shipping illegal aliens to Martha's Vineyard. They'll find something. The goodness is its own reward. The goodness in vigorously defending Trump, it would have been a selfish vigorously defending Trump because it would be preemptively defending himself. Because even if he gets to the past, the primaries and he's the Republican candidate, expect them to weaponize the full force of federal criminal law against DeSantis as well. Piotr says, just subbed on Rumble, screw YouTube. Booyaka Shasser. We're up to what are we up to? 333,000 subs on Rumble. See that beautiful, beautiful. It's idolatry. I know it's idolatry. Let me be a child, and it's a beautiful statue. And then we got Human Flourishing says, Viva, in 2005, I made one of YouTube's first viral videos featuring Bas Rutten. Oh, I remember him. And guess what? No pauses. Now see it on Rumble. Everyone go, you know what? If I may, I'm going to end the show with this. Bas Rutten, one of the best one of the best fighters of all time. I'm not making a mistake. I get mixed up between Bas Rutten. Anyhow, great. Those are the rants. Okay. Shall we do a little? Let's do a little Tim Pool lawsuit, so everybody can learn from the mistakes of others. Where is it? I had the lawsuit pulled up here somewhere. You can't be careful when you just go and pull something from the internet, people. Here we go. Check this out. So Timcast is being sued because apparently, in an article that was published on Timcast, they pulled an image from the original publication of a story, and it was somebody's copyrighted work, and they're now being sued under the full power of the law. Oh, I love these things. Look at this. Demand for jury trial. Introduction. This action seeks to recover damages for copyright infringement. Plaintiff herein creates photographic images and owns the rights to these images, which plaintiff licenses for various uses, including online and print publications. Defendant runs into, yeah, we all know them. Plaintiff Christopher Sadowski is an individual who is a citizen of the state of New Jersey and maintains a principal place of, okay, whatever. He's got a place of business. I'm sure he's a good photographer. I'm going to show you what the picture looks like in a second. No, you know what? I'm not going to, because I don't want to get in trouble. And so what ends up happening, to simplify this, is Timcast, someone at Timcast pulls this image, runs a story. It was about Ghislaine Maxwell. It's a picture of the front of the courthouse with somebody walking up the steps. And apparently they didn't license the image. Okay, the website is a popular and lucrative commercial enterprise. The website is monetized in that it contains paid advertisements, and upon information and belief, defendant profits from these activities. The website is monetized, yada, yada, yada. The photograph was displayed. Oh, here we go. Is it going to be up still? Was displayed at the Timcast URL. Okay, so I guess we don't have that anymore. All right, the photograph was stored at, let's see, do we see? Oh, yeah, okay, well, that's it right there. This is newsworthy commentary. So it's pretty, it's a good photograph. Timcast used it, didn't license it, and is now being sued. The guy registered his copyright, which is a good thing to do. Makes it easier to prove in court. And that's it. Upon information and belief, the infringement was not posted at the direction of a user, as the terms defined. Oh, so they're suing under Section 17 USC 512, which provides for statutory minimums and statutory maximums in terms of copyright infringement. You can sue for the profits generated from it if there were any profits whatsoever, or you can get a statutory minimum and a statutory maximum if the violation is egregious. Upon information and belief, a large number of people have viewed the unlawful copies of the photograph on the website. Upon information and belief, defendant at all times had the ability to stop the reproduction and display of plaintiff's copyright material. Defendant's use of the photograph, if widespread, would harm plaintiff's potential market through the photograph. Yada, yada, yada. First count, without permission, reproduction. This is all a warning tale to not make silly mistakes, but also a warning that I suspect what goes on with a lot of these cases is people wait and see if someone with big dollar figures makes a stupid mistake and then potentially see it as a big payday. And then instead of doing what normal, responsible, mature adults do, which is, okay, you used it. Well, it's too late to license it now. So how about you pay me 4 or 5 times what a license would have been for that very same photograph, and we can all go our separate ways. Sometimes, vigorous, energetic lawyers might see it as an opportunity for a bigger payday. Copyright holders might say, $750 statutory minimum. No, thank you. I'll go for the full 30,000, and I'm not settling for a penny less. I don't think the courts are going to like what they might perceive to be vigorous, stubborn, copyright trolling, looking for a big payday because of an accidental use or what might have actually just been arguably fair use in the first place. But it's always fun to learn. I say you learn from other people's mistakes, but you learn from your own mistakes faster. We could all learn from the mistakes of. It's not just because something's online that you can use it with impunity, risk-free. That being said, there might be very, very legitimate fair use defenses if it's a newsworthy item or a newsworthy story. And even if not, the courts typically don't like the perception of glutton, greed, and opportunism in wasting court resources trying to judicially extort a massive payday for what should be resolved amicably and reasonably among mature adults. That was a nice photo. Pay the man. I say. Okay, I just saw. I'm not reading some of these chats because they're crazy. Pay the man. That's it. Who was it? It was the reaction channel that got a number of the copyright violations from a number of their reaction videos. I can't remember the name of the licensing agency. It wasn't Storyful. It wasn't Newsflare. Chat, help me. You remember that? It was a reaction channel. A guy and a girl. The girl started crying, and it got all of her fans very, very angry at this video licensing agency, who went after them for tons of money because they had just basically replayed an entire licensed video, reacted to it, but never licensed it. Oh, Chad, help me out. Come on. What was it? What was it? It wasn't Getty. It wasn't Getty. Ugh, I won't remember anyhow. But yeah, you know, there's typically penalty provisions. Like, okay, if you use it, if we catch you having used it afterwards, licensing it is no harm, no foul. Well, that's not exactly how it works. MXR, it was MXR Plays. And who was the licensing agency that was getting Jukin? There we go. Jukin Media. You know, they have penalty provisions, which if we catch you using it without having licensed it, just paying the license fee will not teach you a lesson, and it will not compensate us for what we had to go through to get paid for legitimate, not fair use. So yeah, whatever, and we'll see where it goes, because Lord knows courts don't like people using the judicial process as an extortive mechanism to get more than what is reasonable, what is fair, and what could be resolved without wasting judicial resources. Okay, parentheses closed. I hate court. I never want to see the inside of a courtroom again. I never want to deal with lawyers on a professional basis again. I never want to. You get served a lawsuit. It's endless headache as a defendant, and even as a lawyer, it's endless headache, because all parties, unless the plaintiff's lawyer is working on commission, which they might very well be doing, which was why they might not want to settle for, you know, a reasonable amount. They want a big payday. But as a defense lawyer, like, okay, it's going to cost you to fight it. Are you going to be happy paying me more than you might actually have to pay them? Yeah, that's it. I'll pay you before I pay them, is what every client says before they have to pay both. So, all right, that's it. Now let's get to the ugliness of Canada. The autofocus is wobbly, someone says. Let me see here. Oh, I'm an idiot. I got the new camera today and I forgot to set it up for the stream. I got a good new camera, a good new plug-in. Eric Hunley, America's Untold Stories, highly recommended it. So I'll get that in there. All right, now enough with the inconsequential lawsuit. Inconsequential at the broader scheme, except learning a lesson from other people. Let's pull up this story, because it's just it's going to segue perfectly into where we're going in Canada. From the New York Post, Minnesota's first transgender lawmaker named one of USA Today's Women of the Year. And the top comment is, "This is an insult to every woman in Minnesota." Okay, I'll just. This is not a cover my ass parentheses. Every full-grown adult who chooses to do whatever they want to do to themselves, with themselves, in full awareness of fact and law, is free to do whatever they want to themselves in full awareness of fact and law. Where there's a big problem is when it starts encroaching, and I dare say desecrating, on the rights of others. Imagine being a woman in today's day and age, and I'm saying a biological woman, because it doesn't matter how you feel. I mean, I guess I should say that. How you feel matters to you. How you feel does not matter to basic biology. There are biological males, biological females, period. Imagine being now a biological female who had to fight hard for the right to vote. Actually, let's just back this up. Imagine we were at where we are today 100 years ago, and you had biological men who identified as women saying, "There's no problem here. I get to vote. I'm a woman, so I get to vote. No problem." It wouldn't have flown then any more than it would fly now in terms of what is being done to women's rights. Biological women's rights, which have a biological essence, a biological root to them. It has a historical root to them as well. When you celebrate the first woman to have accomplished something where historically biological women were excluded from participation because they were biologically women, when you detract from that recognition or dilute that recognition, or I'll dare say trump that recognition with a recognition that is now being given to biological males because they identify as being women, whatever that means in biology, you are undoing women's rights, period, full stop. It becomes even more apparent when you get into the realm of sports, where biology, more so than history, plays a determinate element, where you have anybody just denying basic biology, trust the science, my ass, but where you have like the Leah Thompsons of the world, biological males who have gone through puberty, who have had all the benefits of testosterone, bone mass, muscle mass, arm span. Later on in life, after having had all these benefits, identifying as something which they are biologically not, and then competing in a sport which was designated, given the biological differences between biological males and biological females. It's an injustice that cannot be overstated, but one that is not necessarily rooted as much in history as in biology. Women of the Year was intended to recognize success of women who had been historically, I presume, either discouraged, disincentivized, or outright not permitted to participate in certain aspects of public life. Meet USA Today's Women of the Year. These honorees are women who lift up people in their communities and across the country, making a difference in the lives of many. They show up and speak out for those who may not have a voice, advocating for issues from health to equality to justice to the environment and more. And then we get to the honoree, Minnesota honoree. And I have no judgment for anybody who chooses to live the way they choose to live. The biological fiction in which we are being browbeaten into living is becoming a little suffocating. Lee Fink, I don't know what stage of the transition, if you can call it that, Fink is going through. I don't know if Fink is intact biologically. I'll get there in a second. She never planned to be a politician. Now she's the first transgender legislator in the state's House of Representatives, fighting to build a better future for trans youth. I haven't read the more, actually. Have I read the more here? Our movement for justice. Oh, let me see. We're not looking at the same thing here. Let's just look at this. And remind me, Chad, in case I forget. The argument, well, if a woman has her if she has her uterus removed, is she still a woman? Well, what makes a woman? She has uterus and breasts. Well, if she has her breasts removed, is she still a woman? What makes a biological man or male a male? Male genitalia. Well, if you remove those male genitalia, are they not still a biological man? Even by the own argument that people use to show that having your uterus removed does not make you less of a woman? Don't ask for consistency, but this is the argument that is raised, where someone says, define what a woman is. And then most people say, okay, well, they have a uterus. Oh, so a woman who had a hysterectomy is no longer a woman? That's a stupid definition. Okay, let me follow your logic then. What's a biological man? Someone born with male genitalia. Typically, there might be some astronomical anomaly where someone is actually biologically male but born without genitalia for whatever the reason. But that would be it. Oh, so you're saying if they remove their genitalia, they won't be a biological male? Well, following your argument for what doesn't make a woman, that is exactly true. Let's just read this. Our movement for justice are lifelong. Meet Minnesota's first transgender legislator. Lee Fink is one of USA Today's Women of the Year, a recognition of women who have made a significant impact in their communities and across the country. They are asking us to add 2 and 2 together and say that it equals 5. Lee, I know some people take issue with the term transgender because the argument is you can't trans from something you're not. You can't transition from something that you are to something that you're not. You just can't do it. I know the argument. You can dress up as, you can cosmetically make yourself look like, but you're not transitioning from anything to anything. You will always be biologically male, despite cosmetically, superficially looking female. Okay, I think we understand as a colloquial term, transgender means, or transitioning means just doing that. The non-biological cosmetic alteration, however radical they might be. But we are being told to refer to a biological male as what we implicitly recognize that they are not, and called bigots if we say simply, I'll call Lee by Lee's first name, but don't tell me to call Lee by something that denies the biology of who Lee is as a biological being. But now, USA Today, not only must you recognize Lee as something that Lee is biologically not, we are going to take the place of a biological woman and recognize Lee as a woman, not a trans woman. And one would think the newsworthiness, the political attention, the media attention that this issue is getting, that you'd have a very large depth of field of a trans category in sports, in politics, in recognition for whatever. Make a trans person of the year, and then award trans individuals, whatever you understand that to be, with these awards. But we're being told to deny basic biology. And we're being told to deny our own thoughts and our own, they're not even beliefs, our own scientific matters of fact. I'm being told that, someone born a man can change to a woman? No, he can cosmetically do a number of things to make himself look like a woman. And if that makes him happy in life, none of my business. Really, none of my business. Are we going to read this whole thing? What is your definition of courage? Courage is just doing the right thing. Knowing what the right thing is not courage, but doing it in the face of hardship is. That to me seems like what it means to be courageous. That's a very, very poignant definition of courage. A lot of people who are saying, don't tell me to call a biological man a she. Don't call me a bigot. And if I'm going to do that and take the heat, that might be courage by Lee's own definition. Lee is free to be as Lee wants, but Lee is not free to tell me what to think and to tell me to deny basic biology. And good for Fink for the accomplishment. I wonder if Lee is proud, knowing that there is a biological female for whom this category was created that has been bumped off that pedestal for whatever it's worth. But I think it's worth nothing because it's USA Today and it's pure rubbish. Pure rubbish. But speaking, and we're going to get to the Canadian insanity now. Let me just go to the chat and see if anybody has heard of Bill C4. Bill C4, people. Who's heard of it? Yes, I've heard of it. No, I have not. Oh, don't hear. Somebody's watching me says they never stop pushing and they're after the kids in the end. We're all seeing that now. They're not hiding it anymore. They're so not hiding it. They're legislating it in Canada. Right. Courage is doing the right thing regardless of the hardships you face. Well, you know what that might entail? That might entail telling a 10-year-old confused kid that they might feel like a boy today, whatever the hell that means. But as an adult, as a mature adult, I'm not going to let a child with an undeveloped brain, with a confused sense of identity, permanently alter their body for the rest of their lives to cater to that irrational, undeveloped whim of a child. Oh, and I'm the bigot. Not only am I the bigot, in Canada, one might be the criminal. If they tell their own kid, I know you feel like a boy today, Tommy, whatever that means. Hey, here's an idea. Maybe you're just gay. Is that radical? Hey, I'm a boy. I'm attracted to other boys, or I'm a girl and I'm attracted to other girls. I must be a girl. Let's take one sex just so that I'm consistent. I'm a boy that's attracted to a boy. Oh, if I talk to a trans activist, they're gonna say, that's because you're a girl. Whatever happened to just being gay? I'm a boy that's attracted to a boy. Okay. The irony of the trans movement, as we are seeing it metastasize today, is that it's fundamentally misogynist and it's inherently homophobic. It's inherently homophobic. And by the way, the victims of all of this are going to be gays, young lesbians, and impressionable children. And for that, I don't know how it happened. They've got the eye of the legislator. Let me see something here. Let me pull up the law, Bill C-4. Look, wait until, I'm not pulling up the actual law. I'm going to pull up just the, just this here. Bill C-4, people, an act to amend the criminal code. This is law now, by the way, in Canada. It passed in January 2022, or it was received. I'll look at as to see when it received royal assent. An act to amend the criminal code. The criminal code. What the hell is my problem? An act to amend the criminal code. Conversion therapy. Hey, but spoiler alert, people. Conversion therapy, one way, is criminalized. Conversion therapy, another way right now, not so much. And just wait until this is coming from the justice.qc.ca, justice.governmentofcanada.ca. Explanatory note. Section 4.2 of the Department of Justice Act requires the Minister of Justice to prepare a charter statement for every government bill to help inform public and parliamentary debate on government bills. One of the Ministers of Justice's most important responsibilities, charter considerations. The Minister of Justice has examined Bill C-4, an act to amend the criminal code, conversion therapy, for any inconsistency with the charter pursuant to his obligation under Section 4.1 of the Department of Justice Act. This review involved consideration of the objectives and features of the bill. What follows is a non-exhaustive discussion of the ways in which Bill C-4 potentially engages the rights and freedoms guaranteed by the Charter. It is presented to assist in informing the public and parliamentary debate on the bill. Listen to this. So this is old, but whatever. Overview. Listen to this. Bill C-4 would amend the criminal code to prohibit certain activities that relates to conversion therapy. Well, that's funny because when you hear it, you might think that it's actually going to outlaw converting boys to girls, transitioning girls to boys, double mastectomies, bottom surgeries, lopping off functional genitalia to convert literally, or to attempt to convert literally one sex to the other. You'd be wrong if you thought that. Conversion therapy, which is defined as a practice, treatment, or service designed to wait until you see how unidirectional this is and deliberately so. It's in your face. Conversion therapy is defined as a practice, treatment, or service designed to change a person's sexual orientation to heterosexual. You can change them to gay. You can change them to trans, but you can't change them, their sexual orientation, to heterosexual. Change a person's gender identity to cisgender. The heck does cisgender mean again? Look up cisgender. A cisgender person is someone who has a gender identity that matches their sex assigned at birth. Conversion therapy, that would be outlawed, is changing a person's a practice, treatment, service designed to change a person's gender identity to cisgender, but you can change it to trans. Change a person's gender expression so that it conforms to the sex assigned to the person at birth, but you can change them to a sex that they weren't assigned at birth. Repress or reduce non-heterosexual attraction or sexual behavior. Repress a person's can you imagine our legislators our government is using this terminology. Repress a person's non-cisgender identity or repress or reduce a person's gender expression that does not conform to the sex assigned to that person at birth. Conversion therapy is basically anything that would involve trying to veer someone back to heterosexuality, to accepting their gender identity as assigned at birth, whatever the hell that is. Do you know what this basically does? This criminalizes treatment of gender dysphoria. Some of you may not know what gender dysphoria is. Because once upon a time, everything that we're discussing now as trans ideology is known as gender dysphoria. It's in the, just so nobody thinks I'm making this up, they're going to call me a bigot for, being all medical. It's only a matter of time before they try to abridge or amend the DSM-5 or 6 or 7, whatever, just to take gender dysphoria out of there. It's no longer going to be an issue. I mean, OCD is going to be an issue. Feeling anxiety, stress, if you don't do certain things compulsively, that'll still be recognized as a mental issue, a mental illness under the DSM-5. They're going to take out gender dysphoria. The extreme unease of feeling that you're not the sex that you were born into, that'll be taken out. Gender dysphoria is a term that describes a sense of unease that a person may have because of a mismatch between their biological sex and their gender identity. The sense of unease or dissatisfaction may be so intense that it can lead to depression, anxiety, and have a harmful impact on daily life. This is from NHS. Let's just go to DSM-5. Remember, we're going to go back to that. We're going to go back to that provision of criminal law now. You can't try to talk someone out of their gender dysphoria. You can only affirm it. And Jordan Peterson had an amazing segment on the idea that a psychiatrist or a therapist or a cognitive behavioral therapist or a psychologist's role in treating a patient is to affirm their mental issues. Like that's what they're for. Psychiatrists there are now no longer there to advise, assess, and provide medical expertise. They're there simply to affirm the dysphoria of their patients. Gender dysphoria, a concept designated in the DSM-5 TR as clinically significant distress or impairment related to gender incongruous, which may include desire to change primary and or secondary sex characteristics. Not all transgender or gender diverse people experience gender dysphoria. American Psychiatric Association. Don't blame me, people. I didn't make this up. The bill would prohibit certain activities related to conversion therapy, which is defined as as treatment service designated designed to change a person's sexual orientation to heterosexual, change a person's gender identity to cisgender. Well, that's it. Our government has just handcuffed and crippled and criminalized the subcategory of psychiatry related to the treatment of gender dysphoria. Because if anybody now says to someone suffering from gender dysphoria, maybe wait this out, here are some things you can do to treat the anxiety, to possibly come to grips with, to realign with your sex assigned at birth, it's going to be potentially criminal right now. Prohibition causing another person to what this was intended to, I presume, I'm not even sure that I can presume that anymore. I imagine what this was intended to target was like kidnapping young gay kids by ultra-religious individuals, parents, whatever, who want to like exercise the gay. I can only think of something that would involve criminality and not just words. Like a religious parent who I respect the beliefs. I understand the way they might feel about homosexuality. I can safely say I do not share those beliefs. What I imagine this was intended to outlaw was kidnapping, psychological abuse. I can imagine a parent waking their gay kid up every 2 hours. I say in a horror movie, I can imagine this. I don't think this is the way the religious people work at all. So I'm not trying to stereotype. The type of abuse of waking a gay kid up every 2 hours and saying, you're going to go to hell if you don't get straight. I can imagine that. But you know what? Criminal laws already exist to prohibit that type of conduct. Criminal harassment, psychological abuse, parental abuse, like kidnapping, it's already there. This now basically criminalizes a concerned, potentially religious and not necessarily even religious parent saying, you'll grow out of this phase. Maybe it's just a phase. Maybe, calm down, live life, and you'll grow out of it. Telling a kid they might grow out of a phase right now, potentially criminal. Who the hell knows, because it's so bloody ambiguous. That's what it was intended to cover, outright abuse in terms of conversion therapies. What's quite clear from this is that it bans pretty much one unidirectional. If you're telling someone that they're not, you can't tell someone they're straight. You can't tell someone that they're male if they were born male, but you sure as hell can convert them the other way. You sure as hell can. It almost seems like it's implicitly protected under this drafting. Hold on, here we go. Where was it? Here, check this out. Canada Bill C4 banning conversion therapy comes into force January 7, 2022. Bill C4, a federal bill that amends Canada's criminal by creating new criminal offenses. Nothing's better than creating new criminal offenses where you already had provisions of law to deal with those very same conceptual acts of potential criminality related to conversion therapy came into effect. The new offenses include knowingly causing another person to undergo conversion therapy, promoting or advertising conversion therapy, can't even talk about it, promoting it, and receiving financial or material benefit from conversion therapy. I hope to goodness this comes back and bites the asses of the doctors performing actual, literal conversion therapy. Biological, hormonal, genital mutilation conversion therapy. I don't think it can reasonably because it doesn't seem to be worded that way. But my goodness, it would be ironic if this law is used to criminally pursue those who cause, promote, materially, financially benefit from double mastectomies, or as they like to euphemistically call it, top surgeries, lopping off functional penises, what they call bottom surgeries. It would be ultimate irony. But you know what? You don't need new laws to deal with that for which there are already existing laws. I don't need a new law to prohibit genital mutilation in children. Don't need it. But now we're being told 2 + 2 is 5. Someone born a biological male, you have to call that person a she. And it's not genital mutilation to lop off the functional breasts or penises of young people who are not old enough to consent to a tattoo. It's gender affirming care. It's not genital mutilation. It's gender affirming care. My goodness, everybody engaged in clitoral circumcision practices, just use the language. It's religious affirming care without getting into the male circumcision debate. Just change the terms, flip it around on their head. Minister of Justice and Attorney General of Canada, David Lametti. You may remember David Lametti. He's the guy that replaced Jody Wilson-Raybould. And Minister for Women and Gender Equality and Youth, Marcy Yen, introduced the bill on November 29, 2021. On December 1, members of Parliament in the House of Commons unanimously agreed to expeditiously adopt a motion to pass the bill. Do you know what this means? Bullshit. This means freaking institutionalized corruption. Expeditiously pass the bill. Because at one point it was called Bill C6. And I don't know what happened to Bill C6. I think it died the same way Bill C11, the act to regulate online streaming, died, and then they just rammed it through as Bill C10. Well, they just did the same thing here. Bill dies with the legislature, ram it through expeditiously. You know what you can't do expeditiously is pass laws. You know what you can't do expeditiously? Have thorough, meaningful public debate. And by the way, unanimously, when it comes to something of criminalizing words and thought, being unanimous is not a good sign. It means that people are drinking the same Kool-Aid or flipping cowards. And by the way, unanimously, that would involve the so-called Conservative Party of Canada. Soon after, the bill was also fast-tracked in the Senate, and on December 7, it was passed without amendment. The bill received royal assent December 8, 2021. The bill itself stipulated that the law would come into force 30 days after it received royal assent. There you go. Contents of the bill. This bill defines conversion therapy as follows. Conversion therapy means a practice, treatment, or service designed to change a person's sexual orientation to heterosexual. How the hell do you pass a law that's drafted like that? Why would it not just be to change a person's sexual orientation? Why would it not be that? How could it not be that? How could this have received unanimous approval? What do they call it? Unanimous. Nobody stopped to say, wait a minute. Why would it only relate to changing a person's sexual orientation to heterosexual? So I can tell someone to be gay? I mean, that's what it means. So I can tell someone to be gay. I can tell a boy to become a girl, But I can't tell a boy who, in that moment of their life, thinks that they're a girl that, no, you're really a boy and you might just grow out of this. Change a person's gender identity to cisgender. Why wouldn't it just be to change a person's gender identity? Change a person's gender expression so that it conforms to the sex assigned to the person at birth. Why wouldn't it just be to change a person's gender expression? This law is intended to promote trans. That's it. It's intended to promote what is a diagnosed mental condition under the DSM-5. That's what it is intended to promote, exacerbate, and amplify. What is recognized under the DSM-5 as gender dysphoria. Repress a person's non-cisgender. Oh, so you repress a person's non-cis, so you can change a person's gender identity to non-cisgender. You're allowed to do that. You're allowed that conversion therapy, but not to cisgender. You're not allowed repressing a person's you're not allowed, let me see if I can get this mental gymnastics in my head. You cannot repress a person's non-cisgender identity, but you can conversion therapy repress someone's cisgender identity. You can tell someone, dude, you're not actually what you think you are, what you're in your birth certificate, but look at you. You got long hair. You're a little effeminate. Maybe you're not a boy. You could tell, you could do that. You could do that conversion therapy. You could chop their dicks off. It's amazing. You can chop off their tits and you can chop off their dicks. I should say that more politely. You can remove their breasts and you can remove their male genitalia. That, oddly enough, would not be conversion therapy under this law. That's weird. Don't get angry though. And don't object to it. It was unanimous. Even the Conservative Party of Canada agreed to this. So if you don't agree with this, as Maxime Bernier of the People's Party of Canada didn't, it's unanimous. It's unanimous. You can't argue with unanimity. Unanimity makes right? Especially when you're all, oh my gosh. This is law in Canada now. A one-way prohibition on conversion therapy, which is a one-way free-for-all on the inverted conversion therapy. Unbelievable. Okay, there's more to it. Let me just get some Rumble rants up here. Astro Sweat says the madness coming full circle, women entering drag show competitions, and the trans community calls that an unfair advantage. Second Amendment or Die says, Viva, can't wait to see you in Chattanooga in the great volunteer state of Tennessee. Ginger Ninja here, by the way. Thank you very much. Until then, God bless. Thank you very much. Yeah, we're going to have our next meetup in Chattanooga, Tennessee. It's going to be amazing. Viva, this is from Aunt M. It's about control. He's not a woman. They want me to say that's a woman, and don't believe your lying eyes. It's the same as anorexia, a mental illness. Shesko S, $2 Rumble Rant says YouTube is pulling down streams that show NCI, National Citizen Inquiry, Maverick News had a channel banned for covering. Well, that might make me want to cover it a little more. I haven't been avoiding it for any reason, other than the fact that it's all day long and I haven't been able to. And I was waiting for clips so I can look at that. But that makes me want to cover it a little more right now. Interesting. Oh, yeah. Madness. It's absolute madness. Okay. That might be it coming out of Canada. No, hold on, because that segued into something else. Quiet dog. This was okay. So this we already covered. Get that out of here. No, we might have covered Bill C4, law in Canada. Let's see where this goes. Oh, that's it. Okay, good. No, hold on a second. So here, one more thing coming out of Canada that it will blow your mind. Yeah, remember when they froze the bank accounts of truckers during the Ottawa convoy? This is behind a paywall. I got a copy that was not. I got the full text of the article behind a paywall. But listen to this from Blacklock's reporter, not to be confused with BlackRock. Fed blacklists went, come on, get out of there, far wide. A federal blacklist of Freedom Convoy sympathizers was emailed to foreign banks with offices from Wall Street to Beijing, records show. The RCMP placed no restrictions on distribution of the blacklist. Information was shared. So the government of Canada is trying to interfere with people's potential international banking. It wasn't enough that they overstepped their bounds, although it got ratified by Commissioner Rouleau of freezing bank accounts and deemed acceptable. They are sending a list out to foreign banks, ostensibly in the hopes of, getting people debanked abroad, bringing in a formal social credit system in banking itself. Mess around, get debanked. Espouse beliefs that the government doesn't like. Well, we're not going to tell the banks what to do. We're just going to send along a notice and let the banks who have these one-sided contracts of adhesion that basically allow for the unilateral, no explanations given, termination of banking agreements online and in person. Just going to let them know. You might be dealing with a rabble-rouser. You might be dealing with the fringe minority holding unacceptable views. It doesn't end. It doesn't end. All right, and before we head over to Rumble, locals. Before we head over to locals, I just wanted to bring, this we brought up, adverse effects. We brought that up. Okay, good. What do we have? Oh, that's what I wanted to bring up. The mask mandates. The masks do nothing. The mask mandates did nothing. Will any lessons be learned? It's an opinion from Brett Stevens. The most rigorous and comprehensive analysis of scientific studies conducted on the efficacy of masks for reducing the spread of respiratory illness, including COVID-19, was published late last month. Its conclusions, said Tom Jefferson, the Oxford epidemiologist, who is its lead author, were unambiguous. There is just no evidence that masks, make any difference, he told the journal Maryland Damasi, full stop. But wait, hold on. What about N95 masks as opposed to lower quality surgical or cloth masks? Makes no difference. None of it, said Jefferson. What about the studies that initially persuaded policymakers to impose mask mandates? They were convinced by non-randomized studies, flawed observational studies. What about the utility of masks in conjunction with other preventative measures such as hand hygiene, physical distancing, or air filtration? There's no evidence that many of these things make any difference. These observations don't come from just anywhere. Jefferson and 11 colleagues conducted the study for Cochrane, a British nonprofit that is widely considered the gold standard for its reviews of healthcare data. The conclusion were based on 78 randomized controlled trials, 6 of them during COVID pandemic, with a total of 610 participants in multiple countries, and they track what has widely been observed in the United States. States with mask mandates fared no better against COVID than those without. Conspiracy theory, people, trust the science. Here's the link to the article. I didn't give the archive link, so trust the science, and they still have mask mandates in Canada and elsewhere. It's a bloody outrage. Should have done that on YouTube so that YouTube doesn't accuse me of medical misinformation, because I can read and I know which scientists to rely on, and I know that there was a reason why on those boxes it said does not protect against coronavirus. I know there's a reason. Oh, but at least they cause no harm. Bullshit. And I've talked to a number of experts now that have confirmed, no, they don't not cause harm. Some say they cause an increased intake of CO2. I'm not sure that I'm convinced about that. What I am convinced about is that some of the masks were potentially toxic, and that's going to be a problem. Some of them contained a little microparticle known as graphene, which people were inhaling 8 hours a day when they were being compelled by the government to wear these shitty, toxic masks. Oh, and then the government recalls them afterwards. They were being forced to wear government specified masks with no alternative of bringing their own masks for hours on end, days on end, months on end, potentially toxic. Oh, but the good masks are not potentially. Yeah, well, that's if you get the good masks. So set aside the potentially toxic masks. There still is lasting damage. I've talked to dentists or dental hygienists. No, dentists who confirm an increase in cavities, because apparently it's not good to keep that humidity in there. It raises the acidity level or something along those lines in saliva. increased cavities in kids who were wearing masks. What was the other one? That actually blew my mind. They called it maskne. The kids at school have a word for it. It's called maskne. Acne under the masks. Mold on these masks because kids, like I always said, are idiots. Kids are idiots. Their brains are not developed, which is why you don't let them decide to lop off functional genitalia or take hormone blockers that are going to permanently screw up their physiological development. They're idiots. They don't dispose of the masks the way you're supposed to. They use disgusting masks day in and day out that have potential mold on them. Oh, it's not even that they were harmless. They were harmful and useless. But Justin Trudeau, listen to him. He knows the science. If you criticize masks, you're as idiotic as a flat earther. But don't take my word for it. I just know which experts I think are the good ones. Do we want to listen to that one more time? Yeah, let's listen to it.
Before the pandemic, getting really fascinated by flat earthers.
Oh.
And trying
well,
to
by the way, I'm now convinced there was a reason why YouTube was promoting flat earth for a little while, flat earth theorists. It's specifically, and why the media paid so much attention to it, it's specifically to lump everybody into the most untenable theories. Even the moon landing, I now understand the arguments, and they're not as absurd as some might have you believe. Flat earth, I had the interview with Mark Sargent. I know where not the sophistry is, but rather the Zenonian logic. They've created a set of rules that can never be disproven. People are free to believe whatever the heck they want. But now I sort of get the feeling I understand why the media, why social media, why platforms were giving so much attention, such a big bullhorn to flat earth in particular. It's so they can then lump in everything. Legitimate conspiracy, legitimate theories, legitimate objection, lump it all together. If you think masks are useless and cause problems, you're as out there as someone who thinks the earth is flat.
And sort of the thinking behind them of people who decided actively to create an identity for themselves that was to just clearly reject what science,
basic science,
settled thousands of years ago with the ancient Greeks.
Yeah, boys have penises, girls have vaginas. You might be able to manufacture something that looks like a penis, but in as much as a woman who has her ovaries removed for a hysterectomy is still a woman, a man who has his penis removed and turned into a vagina is still a man. You know why? Because we know, what do they call them? Whatever it is. This guy, it's like sucking and blowing. What we've known for thousands of years about the round earth makes these people lunatics. And what we've known for thousands of years about procreation, biology, and basic sex, we've now criminalized discussion about in Canada. I can't listen to him. Okay, before I actually get in trouble at home, I'm going to go share in the link section here. Locals. Come on over to Locals. I'm going to do the Locals exclusive portion of this at vivabarneslaw.locals.com. Locals, if anybody wants to support the channel, it's the best place to do it, to support Barnes and myself, to support me and Barnes in our venture. It's an amazing community. We are now at over 107,000 members. So 500 and whatever thousand on YouTube, 333,000 on Rumble, and we're at 107,000 in our vivabarneslaw.locals.com community on Locals. They're not all supporters. They're just members of the community. There's some stuff that's behind the paywall for the supporters, and then a ton of stuff that is open for everybody. It's a great community. As Robert says, we are all above average.